Hello everybody and welcome to my new video, which is gonna be ranking every racer in Disney Speedstorm just based on my liking, not based on are they good ranked or are they good competitively or anything like that, just how much do I like racing as them. Because I've seen there are already so many people that have made good videos on are they good competitively, and I will go from D tier first and then work my way upwards to S tier. And the D tier is characters I just genuinely don't like. C tier is characters I just think of are kind of boring to play as. B tier are kind of in the middle, and I kind of like them, but it's not the best. And A tier is I love them, and S tier are just the best of all four types of races. The best speedster, the best trickster, the best what's it called, the defender, and best brawler. But without further ado, let's get into it. And first to D tier. Now I'm gonna rank them in order and tell you why I don't like them so much. We'll go from worst all the way to the right to best all the way to the left. Now all the way to the right, my least favorite Disney Speedstorm racer is Jumba, and the reason is he's just way too slow for my liking, way too heavy, and his ability is just basically a blue shell, which if you're in the furthest back, it's not very useful, and if it's a 1v1, then it isn't useful if the racer is way too far ahead of you and has access to any form of shield. So basically it would be great if you had someone else who were in second and you could help beat, or if you're good with him and you could be close to the one in first, or are in first and can leave the exploding gun behind you. But that personally I just don't like him, and that's not because I don't like the character, because Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie of Disney, tied with Tangled. But I just don't like how him as a racer is just feels way too draining to race as him. And then number 4 is Randall, and that's because his stats among the tricksters are my least favorite, but that's not all. His unique skill is also not very useful. First of all, his cloaking ability just makes him invisible. Like, it's already a regular skill to be cloaked and be invisible. Like, he doesn't do anything. Like, he gets a boost every time he drives past someone close enough to scare them, but if you're not close enough, then he won't do anything. And he's not really fast enough to drive past anyone, so that's often enough either. And then his other skill is just a short teleport, but whenever you teleport, it's just a very short distance, and when you are finished, it slows it down a bit. So, and we already have Mike, who also has the teleport skill. He can make doors appear and teleport out, and he will go a great distance, and will also keep the speed after teleporting. So all around, his unique skill is just very lackluster. And in third place, I would say Figment. And that's partly because I'm not just a huge fan of Walt Disney World characters, because I don't really know any of them outside of this game, but also because his unique skill doesn't really do it for me, and he's just like, his stats are better than they were before, but I still don't really like picking him personally. Again, mostly because I just don't like him as a character. I have no feeling, no good, really love feeling towards him, and his unique skill is just isn't fun for me. And then at number 2 is Baloo, and he falls a little bit into the same problem as Jumba, with being just very slow, and too slow for my liking, and big, and just doesn't do it for me stats wise. And his skills are just, if you're in first, his your normal skill with the leaving pampas behind are semi useful, but they're easy to get around for races who have played a lot. Like, unlike Kristoff's, where they actually move and roll and are small and are left behind very quickly but after another, his is very neither fast nor slow between each other. It's just kind of there, and they just stand still in place all the time. And his other skill is just puts fruits that can give you boost, but it can also give everyone else boost. It's just, if the skill helps you but also helps everyone else just as much as equal as it helps you, then it isn't really useful in my opinion. Like, it doesn't do anything extra for Baloo that it doesn't do for everyone else either. So if you summon the fruits and someone else just takes them, you will just have ended up helping others and just ruining it for yourself, basically. And the best of the D tiers that almost falls into just being boring is Mowgli. And what helps him a lot in getting this high up is, of course, being a speedster, since he's my favorite class. But also because his skill, although not being very useful compared to others that are similar, that just do a better job of what he does, like, what's it called, Jasmine and Kristoff, it still does something. It's just very boring. And also not so just if although I like the Jungle Book, the two characters I would like to play as are Shere Khan and King Louie. I never really cared for Mowgli. I did like Baloo, but as I said, I just don't like how he drives in this game. While Mowgli, I kind of get like a bit of how he drives, but I just don't like him as a character, nor do I like his ability at all. Really. Very boring ability. But now on to the C tier. Now in C tier we have Goofy, Steam Pete, Jack Sparrow, Celia May, Gantu, Jafar and Hans. And to put them in order, like I did in C tier, in last place would be Goofy. He's just been my least favorite of the trio in the Mickey and Friends. Though I did love a Goofy movie, but just other than that, I never really liked him. And he does, out of the abilities, despite Mickey somewhat helping others, I just find he's kind of lackluster, especially when he goes so slow compared to characters like Aladdin and Oswald. And he kind of falls in the same reign as Mowgli and Randall for that reason, but he's still a good skill. It's just worse than the others. And if you charge it, you just get a boost, which is also nice and could hurt the people behind you. But again, just not the biggest fan of the character or his stats. Next up would be Gantu. Again, I'm just not a big fan of big build characters in this game. They are usually just bad at turning corners and have taken a long time to build up speed, but Gantu at least has a good skill, and again, like Jumba, is from one of my two favorite Disney movies. And his skill is really useful because it can stun opponents if they drive over it, but it can also get you temporary invulnerability. And I would just think it would be better if driving over those dots with the Gantu would also give you a slight boost. And maybe he would go up to higher up in C tier, maybe even B tier, depending of what it does. But again, just not a big fan of how he drives. But on to the next one, we have Steamboat Pete, which again, same reason as Gantu, Jumba, and Baloo, is a big character and therefore hard at turning and has bad acceleration. But at least with him, he has a very good skill, and I would say does a lot of work, but I just don't enjoy playing as him. I just find it boring. If I win, it feels boring. If I lose, it feels boring. Just not very fun character. And then for number 4, we have Jack Sparrow. Personally, I love the movies, with the exception of 4 and 5. 4 I kinda somewhat like, I just don't really love it. For sort of a popcorn movie. And 5 is just, I like some parts, but really dislike some other parts. But with Jack, I thought they just could have done more with him. Like, he is the captain of the Black Pearl. They could have done so that he can, go fast, like the Black Pearl is the fastest ship. Or they could have done something with, what he did in the third movie, where he had multiple hallucination of multiple versions of himself, where maybe multiple versions of himself can just drive around and hit others, or something like that. Or you could have something with his compass, or be in the first movie where he had, what's it called, the undead curse, which made him a skeleton, and do something with that. I just think swinging around a sword, and that's all he does, is just really boring, and he doesn't really have the best stats either. But next up is Jafar. And with him it's just really boring, because he just either shoots fire to the side, not the entire way, both sides. So in most cases you can easily get around him. And if he shoots fire forward, he's just the supreme sorcerer, and they didn't do anything more than he shoots fire to the side or shoots fire forward. Like, at least it would be more fun if he just spun it in circles to do fire all around him, but nah. And then in number 2 we have Hans. He, in my opinion, out of all these, has the at least second best unique skill, but again, I'm not a big fan of Frozen, but I don't really dislike it either. But the biggest thing I dislike about Frozen, at least the first movie, is Hans himself as a twist villain. Doesn't really do it for me, and so I don't like the character. But I also really don't like how he drives too much, find it boring, and same goes for his unique ability. Like, at least it's better with Randall with the invisibility, that he can pop out and attack people instead of just scare them for a boost. because as a brawler he still gets nitro boost from attacking people, so he's already way ahead with that, and then his arrows are also much better than now whatever teleportation Randall has. And the arrows are also a lot harder to avoid than most objects that I've listed until now. And finally, the best of the Seeker is Celia May. And that's because I just find her funny as a character to begin with, but I really don't care for her unique skill at all. I do like her stats too, but her unique skill is just so boring for me that it kind of lands in C tier. If she had a better unique skill, she might have been B tier, or she would have been B tier, but next up, B tier. Now, as you might have noticed, most of the big characters from the game are in B tier because, well, I don't generally like them too much, but at least with these and one that is in A tier are good enough to for me to at least like them, or in one case love them. But in B tier we have Mickey, Daisy, Mickey, Minnie, Mulan, Shang, Hercules characters like Hercules, Hades, and Meg, Mike and Sully, Buzz and Woody, Angel, Genie, Jasmine, Elsa, Olaf, Kristoff, and Beast. Now, the one I like the least out of these characters in B tier is Hercules. For one, I just don't care for his unique ability though too much, but I do semi like it, but I think they could have done better. I'm saying go with his stats, though it is an improvement from what it was before, a big one. Because if it was Season 3 Hercules, he would be D tier as well. But at least now I can enjoy him. I like seeing the Pegasus flying in front of him and leaving a trail. And I also genuinely like, Greek mythology, though. Of course, as anyone who knows Greek mythology would know, Hercules the movie doesn't really follow it all too accurately, especially not with the portrayal of Hades and Zeus. But I still find the movie enjoyable despite it not being accurate to Greek mythology. It's just a fun movie. And I like the characters from it as well. Even Hades, despite not being accurate. And the Hercules, who was also not accurate. But just in front of Hercules, we have, let's see, Mike. And that's because, although I love Monster Inc. movie, and Mike and Sully have always been my two favorites, I just don't like playing as Mike the best. He falls pretty far back in B tier because his ability is just there. You can get one and teleport, or two and teleport, and they will also do bad things to enemies, like teleport them backwards. Or, let's see, the enemies can destroy them, whether with a shield or just attacking it, leaving you with nothing. And they can also spawn in bad places, so it's just not one you can count on unless you are in the front, but it's all very useful when you're far in the back, which is why I still like him. And next up we have Sully, and he fits right along with Mike, mostly because he's a big character, like I said. I like his ability a lot more, but again, his stats just don't do it for me. And I would love if he could at least have a better ability that does more than just attack someone nearby. But at least with him, his ability attacks everyone nearby, so if you're surrounded by people, you're likely to get them all. But I don't really have a lot more than that to say about him. And at next up we have Jasmine. With her, like her stats a lot. She's a good racer with a speedster when it comes to stats, but I just don't care for her ability all that much. Raja is at least much better than the wolf pack that Mowgli has, but because it comes in on enemies instead of just running around aimlessly in front of with you. But it also isn't all too accurate, as people can easily jump over him, and he can sometimes just run past someone without them having to face an issue. So it's not very the most reliable skill of them all. Though I think she might get boosted a bit, whether to higher up in B tier or even low A tier if her ability gets fixed. But that's all I can say for now. Then next up we have Hades. Now Hades I really like. Again, love his character and love his stats. His ability is what I kind of find a bit disappointing compared to what they could have done. It's still decent, but it's just not the best. That you could either make him angry with red fire and he shoots anyone that tries to get past him, or he can relax with blue fire and get a boost when he passes someone. And this boost is actually useful in some maps more than others, especially the Toy Story map where people can drive over you, or the Pirates of the Caribbean map where people can drive beside you, pass you, and that will count as you passing them. So you get a boost on those areas if someone is driving there. But that doesn't really happen all too often either, if people are on par with you. It's usually if people are way ahead of you or way behind you. But yeah, I still love him, just not the best ability, as I said. Then, next up, we have Woody. No, Toy Story is one of my, if not my favorite franchise from Pixar. And Woody was my favorite as a kid as well. But he's not my favorite racer of them all. In fact, he's my least favorite. But the fact that my least favorite of the Toy Story racers is still in B tier proves that they made a good job, since I like how all of them play. And I guess the same could be said for, let's see, the Hercules as well, since all of them are B tier above. Not all of them are actually B tier, now that I think about it. But yeah, they did a good job. And I believe that I love his ability with the lasso, either do it around him to kind of create a sort of shield, or latch onto someone and then just pull them backwards but pulling himself forward. And it really does well with his cowboy theme, and I absolutely love it. Just not as much as. But his speed stats are a bit lackluster, though. And there's really no good way to catch up if you're behind with him, depending on how far behind you are. And he isn't really good if you're in front. It's a middle of the pack kind of character, or just shortly behind the people character. But next up we have Shang from Mulan collection. And Mulan is one of my favorite franchises from Disney as well. And to see them both in B tier is good, but I hoped for better, but it's still very good. And Shang is one I did not expect to like as much as I did. But his ability is pretty good, but though it is annoying now with the issue of the helicopter noise when you spin around. But they're gonna fix it apparently. But yeah, you can either throw it at a great distance, which will, if I have good aim, can harm people, stun people. I mean, or you can do the helicopter thing, which will irritate you at least until they fixed it. But it will also stun anyone around you, while also making you vulnerable for the duration of it. But yeah, and next up his stats are also great, especially for a defender, which is not my favorite class. But next up we have Meg. And with her, she is one of the best speedsters if you wanna take it stats as competitively, but for me liking it is very low, especially with her ability, either just a short boost that also completely shuts off your nitro boost, manual boost you have activated, so you need to activate it again afterwards. And it's just a short boost as well. You get boost if you drive by someone, but usually when I play her, I always stand in front, so it's just one short boost, and then I need to charge up my nitro boost and my boost again. And then the other one is just leaving a trail that will confuse people behind you. So I just don't like her ability all too much, though it is not bad, it's just not good. But I do love her stats and how playing as her generally. But moving up we have Buzz next. And with him I love his ability, though if there's one thing I dislike about his ability is that he can hurt himself if you crash with the rocket while having it active, but otherwise it's a pretty amazing ability. And his short ability is also pretty amazing in shooting it backwards, similar to Mulan, and hurting those behind you while you get a boost. Though Mulan doesn't get a boost, which is also and he's also pretty great for a big figure again. And probably what carries him a bit above the rest is my love for Toy Story. But next up we have, Kristoff. With this I didn't expect him to be this high because I really don't care. Unlike Hans, I don't really dislike him or anything. As a character, I just don't care for him that much. But he did surprise me with how good he is, though it is annoying to play against him because of the bed sheets. But he's a good character to play as. You can harm those in front of him or harm those behind him with Sven and the bed sheets respectively, which is good. And he's also a defender, so he can defend against attacks and get a shield up by boosting into someone, and he also has pretty good stats. It's mostly just his character itself that I just don't like, which is what put him here. If I actually liked him as a character, it would probably be A tier. But yeah, he's just resting in B tier. Just because of how they wrote him in the movies. But next up we have Olaf. Now with Olaf, I think I dislike him a bit more than I actually dislike him more than Kristoff in the movies as a character, but he's also a speedster, which is my favorite class, which bumps him up a bit, and his skill, like Kristoff, is just very useful in that he can harm people in front and behind him. So yeah, kind of in the same vein as Kristoff, where I don't really care for them as characters in the movies, but at least Olaf is a class I prefer, so that's what he's above. And then for 7 we have Elsa. For Elsa, I just don't generally like too much. I did kind of enjoy her in the first movie, but didn't like her at all in the second. But with her abilities are pretty great, leaving a wall behind her or freezing people. And I forgot to mention this, but her and Olaf are also unique in what they're the only one that can use the freeze on people, freeze effect on racers with their unique skills. And well, Elsa is just, I don't know, just like her more as a character. And then next up we have Beast, which is already where he's supposed to be. And with him, I just recently played as him, and he has a unique ability that both boosts him and will harm those in front of him. And if you use enough of it, it will activate Beast mode, where he will only get the Beast activation, which is pretty unique. For him, only he has that kind of ability where for a while he only gets one. His unique ability. And that's sort of... And he also gets a lot more boost, and while the boost is active, he gets a lot more boost while in Beast mode as well, and while the boost is active, he also continuously roars, hurting people in front of him. So he's pretty great character, and Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite Disney franchises as well. Top 5, or maybe at least. And then for next up we have Genie, which is also where he's supposed to be. Kind of funny how that works, but I would say with him I also just love him as a character, like the movie a lot as well, and his unique skill is probably among the best in the game as well. It's just that I don't like his stats too much, but again, the unique skill, and the same goes for Beast also. I just don't like their stats too much. But when it comes to their unique skills and their, characters, I guess the more they make up for it. And number 4, again in the place it's supposed to be, is Angel. And that's because I really love speedsters and tricksters the most, and she's a very great trickster. And again, Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorites, and this is the first of the Lilo and Stitch characters that I actually like to play as, and she's very high up among the B tier, which I find enjoyable. The only two I don't like are the big characters, which speak for itself. But yeah, I never watched the TV series, but still managed to find her enjoyable to race as. And she has a pretty good skill in that she can be defended for a while she also gets boosted, or she can boost herself and others for a while, or she can drive normally while invulnerable, but it will also slow down people around her. And that one is probably the best one to use, unless you're far ahead or far behind. And next up after Angel, we have Mickey. And for it now, I just, as a character, is pretty bland in some cases, but in some cases he can also be fun to watch. Especially liked him in The Three Musketeers. And the Epic Mickey, which is one of my favorite games, which is also what boosted him so high up. But I also enjoy his ability, which I actually forget what his regular activation does because I use his charge activation all the time, never do his regular. But yeah, his charge activation is really great. It boosts him like hell and makes him invulnerable, even though it leaves a trail behind that can boost other people. It's just a trail, and it's easy to swerve it around, so it's not easy to follow for others. So yeah, I liked him a lot in the game. And next up we have Minnie, which I just enjoy a bit more, because even though I prefer speedsters over brawlers, I just think they did Minnie better a bit, with a unique skill. And she has that bubble, I think, that shields people. Though I don't remember what the other ability does. And so she can shield herself and bump into others to hurt others, which I like a lot. And then moving on to number 1, we have Mulan, which is the top spot for B rank, and that's just because I love Mulan so much a lot, and because her ability is pretty great if you're good at aiming, and her charge ability, which does it backwards, does actually home in on targets, which I noticed later on, because I hold it and it doesn't hit anyone until when it should reach the wall, but then after a short while later I just see someone got popped, so it must have swerved around and followed them instead. So yeah, her ability is pretty good, and the backwards attack also gets bigger and harder to avoid the bit more stars you have on her. And she's also a trickster, which is my second favorite class in the game. And now on to A tier. And in A tier we have Bo Peep, Donald, Steamboat Mickey, Lilo and Stitch, Daisy Duck, Aladdin, Gaston, Oswald, Hortensia and Wally. These are all characters I love. I have nothing but praise for them. I have no thing I dislike about them. But if I would have to choose someone that's in last place out of these, it would have to be Donald. And that would be because he's pretty much the same as, let's see, Daisy. But Daisy is just a trickster, which I prefer as a class. But though I do love Donald as well, since I am a Swede, I've always grown up with him. He's always been my favorite of the trio. And he deserves an A rank. It's just that the other ones I loved so much more than him to play as. But I still really love playing as him. Then next up would be Gaston. And I actually didn't really like him too much last season, but when I replayed this season and was much better at the game, I really didn't come to enjoy him because I'm much better at aiming with the arrows. I'm much better at turning with big characters. And despite being a big character, which would, despite me saying I have no flaws with any of these characters, he's a flaw with the only flaw, but it's done so well with him compared to the others that I barely even notice he's a big character with bad handling. That's how good he is as a racer, in my opinion. And then at number 7 is Steamboat Mickey. And many of you may be like, what? Why is he so low among the top? Well, I really enjoy him, but the others are just much better. Like, he is better competitively than a lot of the people ahead of him, obviously. And I still really love him, but as characters, just really love the ones ahead of him. His ability to leave a trail is great, but many other can do that. And I would also say that, let's see, I do love that they made him that they included black and white characters. Same with Steamboat, though Steamboat I can't get behind driving as him, but Steamboat Mickey is just so classic that I just love him so much. I had to put him in A tier. And he's a defender, even though I would prefer if he was a speedster like the regular Mickey. But hey, he had to change him up somehow, even if more than just his unique skill, I guess. And then, but next up, we have Daisy. And the Daisy, as I said with Donald, is pretty close in how much I enjoy them, but I just prefer Daisy due to her class. And I also love her character about equally to Donald. And their skills are just the same, so there's really nothing to prefer over the other when it comes to their skills. At least not for me. And for next up, we have Bo Peep. Bo Peep I also love because of I love Toy Story. And her skill is also really great, throwing her baton at others or using it to make herself invulnerable and grabbing onto others if she drives past and to pull them backwards while she pulls herself forward. And also really began to like her even more after the 4th movie, which many people dislike Toy Story 4, think it's necessary or just dislike it, but I actually really enjoyed it. I think it was a great movie. Yeah, sure, Toy Story 3 was a perfect ending, but if they had to make a sequel, Toy Story 4 was a very great one to make, in my opinion. And next up, we have Oswald. Oswald, in my opinion, was a very great addition. All 3 of the mid-season racers this season have been great. The best mid-season racers for all, because let's face it, Figment wasn't a great one, in my opinion at least. Then with the Steamboats, we had one in C tier and the other in A tier, which was a grateful one but very bad for another. And then we have the villains, which one made A tier and one B tier, which was pretty good. But then now we got to all 3 in A tier, which is amazing. Wouldn't have expected all of them to make A tier based on the record. But hey, they did it. But Oswald has a really great skill, which is hovering. You can either do the regular activation where he hovers and you can control it, but he doesn't get any boost, and he will, if you drive into others, he will push them away. Or you can do the short drive activation, which will make him invulnerable, have a boost, and control by himself for a much shorter distance, and will push people away that he touches. And I also love him because of Epic Mickey, which again is one of my favorite games. So him and Hortensia both got into A tier, hugely because of that, but also because of how great they are as racers. And next up, we have Stitch. No, I love Lilo and Stitch, as I said. And if it wasn't, and he's already in top 4 of all the speedsters, my favorite class in the game, and he's already A tier, top 5 A tier characters, which already says a lot about him. And I just like him, but I just prefer many others and don't tend to play as him because of that. And his unique skill of the lasers, there's one that shoots in front of him and one that shoots around him, and I would just wish they changed it so that the lasers either don't bounce off walls, and that would be better change than taking away his vulnerability, in my opinion. But either way, he still a pretty great character. Still love him, and would still be pretty high up. He would just move up maybe to top of A tier. He still wouldn't be S tier because of who my favorite speedster is, but he would be top of A tier if they still had him available and instead just made him fire less lasers and not have them bounce off walls. But next up we have Lilo. Lilo is also almost pretty equal to Stitch in how much I love them. I love her surfboard ability, and I'm pretty I do like her taking picture ability, but I just don't find it the best. But I do love her stats and her character, just like Stitch. And in third place, we have Aladdin. No, Aladdin is pretty great character. I love him from the movie, but he's also pretty great with his stats and his ability. His ability is probably one of the best in the games. If you want to go, let's see, competitively, his magic carpet is pretty overpowered. You can pretty much win with him, even if you don't level him up too much. And what more is there to say then? He's just a great character. And then at number 2 we have Hortensia, the second best A tier. And I didn't expect her to be this high. When she was announced, I was just like, yeah, I will probably get her. I'll probably enjoy her somewhat because I enjoy her and Oswald in the Epic Mickey games, but that's about it. But no. With the exception of the bug right now with her shield, she's a pretty great, amazing character to race as. Has great stats and great ability. And at first, I didn't think her shield and what's it called? The attack flowers could go onto each other and be activated at the same time, like the regular shield, because of a video was of someone that tried to do it, but one went away when he activated the other. But no, they can be activated at the same time, which is even made her even greater. And she's my third favorite best of all speedsters I like playing in the game. And my favorite A tier is Wally, and he's also the character that I bought all the boxes for. So I got him at 4 stars and all his crew at 3 stars. And I would say he's pretty great. He's a unique skill, or also feels like they have so much love put into them. Like putting scrap around the world, and if you collect 3, you put up a what is called a square box of scraps behind you that can stun people, and the fire extinguisher that can propel him forwards a bit. Like that's pretty much the greatest, the most heartfelt out of all of these that I can think of. Like that is a lot of love put into one ability, in my opinion. And his stats are also very amazing. And he comes from a movie that I doubt anybody dislikes. And then for S here, I will show them with you. At the bottom of S here, which is my least liked class, is Jessie. And again, I really love her, and she definitely deserves a spot as the best brawler in the game. And despite her toys that she spawns being reduced, she's still pretty great. But yeah, let's see, her class, brawler type, is pretty much my least disliked class in the game. As you can see, only 2 got A or above. No, 3 got 80 or above, which is Donald, Gaston, and Jessie. Now, in 3rd place, we have Elizabeth Swan from Pirates of the Caribbean. Easily, without a doubt, the best defender in the game. Though only 2 of them got into A tier, but I liked them both a bit more than the brawlers, which is kind of why like they are close together with how much I like them, but I still prefer the defenders, with especially Elizabeth over Jessie a bit. But in 2nd place we have Anna and this was something I didn't expect, because all the other what's it called, frozen characters are B tier or above or below, which is what I expected with them. I didn't expect them to make it to B tier because of me not really being a fan of the movies, but I really love playing as Anna, and she's pretty much one of my favorite characters. And even if I preferred another trickster and didn't have her in S tier, she would probably be either 1st or 2nd place in A tier. That's how much I love her as a racer in the game. And though she was also the one character from the movie that I actually genuinely liked as a character. So it didn't come too much as a shock that she was my favorite of them, but it did come as a shock how much higher she was above the others. Even above other characters that I genuinely love a lot more than I tend to love her as a character. But of course my number 1 is my main, which is Belle. And I always really liked Beauty and the Beast, as I said. And going into the game, I didn't know who I would enjoy more, but Belle has been my main, and the only one I can see taking that spot away from her is Rapunzel from Tangled, whenever they put her in the game, but only if they do it right. Of course, it would also need to be a speedster because that's my favorite class. But if you take a look at what her abilities would be, and comparatively that no other character from Tangled would fit the speedster class more than her, is obviously would be the speedster from the game. But yeah, that's my tier list. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed.